Welcome, welcome, welcome to the TCAD 10-Minute Take. It is your host, Sheree L. Stewart. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Don Legend Chambers. This is the 10-Minute Take, which is the shorty 10-minute version of our normal TCAD podcast, where I'm the host instead of Don, which he hosts the other show. We just do it that way because no reason. Because reasons. But yeah, so in this show, we just talk about one movie and one movie only and try to give you as spoiler-free as possible review. But let me close my other windows because apparently I'm making dinging sounds and we
wait. Yes. Is all of my dinging stuff closed here? Yes.
All right, no more dinging sounds. All right. So I'll probably cut all this out, but maybe not. And today's movie is It's Chapter 2. But before we get into it, make sure you click that bell and click subscribe and make sure you get all the 10-minute takes as soon as they drop.
Yes.
Now, as always, Don will go first. I will set the timer and go.
All right. It Chapter 2, starring Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, James McAvoy, Bill Skarsgård. There's Jay Ryan. There's Old Spice guy Isaiah Mustafa, James Ranson, and the cameo by the man himself, Stephen King. Now, I did not read the books. I really should have, and I really still need to, because I'm sure I'm missing a lot. Missing a lot in terms of how the books actually did it and to what license, the movies took.
Right.
So I know I'm missing a lot there. And I will say I enjoyed the first one mainly because I thought Skarsgård and the way that Pennywise looked was just amazing. So for number 2, still thrilled with how creepy and just scary to me Skarsgård is with his Pennywise. Now, I will say for this, I kind of read in other reviews, people thought of this was almost like a comedy rather than a horror film. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought Bill Hader was funny, but I sort of got his character as being sort of the wise ass because he's Richie, who was kind of a wise ass in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I get he's going to have those wise ass moments. I didn't see the movie as a comedy, although there were some things that just made me laugh that he said. In terms of scary, it didn't really scare me per se. I mean, you sort of see things coming, and I kind of had a feeling that these characters weren't going to die until maybe later on in the movie, if even that happens. So I wasn't, I wasn't like cowering in my seat or anything. Now, it was just some of the crazy shit that happens to him was kind of freaky looking. And there's a couple things that happen to kids that still shock me that they let it happen. So I was like, ooh. But my thing with the It is, I'm not so sure in that ending if that's really the way it was in the book. And then I'm still not sure what is Pennywise supposed to be. It's kind of confused me. Is he a supernatural being? Is he an alien from another planet? Is he just some hallucination in the brain? I mean, I don't quite know what are his rules, because the way that they killed him this time I was like, that's how it's going to go? I don't know. It felt anticlimactic, and I kind of felt a little like, I really should read this book. And that was the one thing going through my head while I was watching it, especially the end, was like, man, I need to read this book because I have no idea what they've made a mess of or not, So it was a little, I don't want to say hollow, but it just kind of left me a little flat, like, okay, like, all right, I sort of thought them getting rid of Pennywise might have been a bit more hardcore-ish. It felt a little easy. Maybe that's the best way I can put it without revealing anything. It just felt a little easy considering what they've been through. Um, overall, though, it's a good movie. It was a good time. There were definitely some good little scares, nothing really over the top. Some freaky stuff. Again, I think Pennywise is great, but if I were to give this when to go see it, honestly, I probably you could skip opening weekend, or you could go opening weekend, but you can make it like the matinee. You know, I don't know if this was necessarily worthy of that night, 8 p.m. I'm getting that first ticket, or like when they release them Thursdays early. I don't think that's necessary. Not necessarily to do that. If I was giving it a number, it'd probably be a 6 out of 10. It's. I don't know. It just felt so flat there at the end. Man, and again, the only thing that's going through my head is, God, I need to read this book, because I have no idea what they've taken out that could have been amazing. Yeah, I was left a little flat.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I thought it was a fitting companion to the first movie. Like, they definitely felt like one movie. It didn't feel like
Right.
they made this first one with the kids, and then like however many years later they made the second one and they were disjointed. It was, like the mini series from the 90s. That was made as one thing. This felt like a continuous thing. Like, it didn't feel chopped up and disjointed, which I was, a little concerned about. I mean, you have the same director, and they shot new scenes with the kids, which there was some weirdness in that because they used some CGI to young them up a little, and that was a little weird. I get why they needed to do that, because the kids are growing. They're at that weird age where they're starting to like grow really fast. I guess they, too bad they couldn't have shot some of that earlier.
At the time
they were shooting the first movie. There was some things where they took out, in the first movie, the stuff that I was mad about with Mike Hanlon, the kid, that they took out a lot of his purpose and because he was supposed to be the town historian.
Right.
He was the one that had the books from his father and about the history of Derry, and they took all of the story from him and then gave it to Ben, who was the architect. And so
but they sort of flipped it back.
Ben was the architect and the historian when they were kids.
Right.
They gave both of those things to Ben, which annoyed the crap out of me. So, because the whole thing was, he's the one who stayed and he became the town librarian and dove deeper into that. But those seeds weren't planted in the first movie the way they should have been. And so they actually beefed up his role from the way he was from the way he was in the books. Like, he has more involvement as a kid and less as an adult in the books.
And they kind of flipped
the book. It's one book. And then in this, they kind of flipped it, where they corrected the wrongs of sidelining him in the first movie. Because he's actually, he's in a lot more of the meat of the action in this version of the movie than he is in the book. Like, there, some circumstances that happen, and he's not like as involved as all that. It's Damien, and I don't want to stop because I have like 4 minutes left. Okay, I have like 1 minute left probably. But, and then like, because they beefed out that role, they wound up trimming up another side character who kind of didn't need to be there, because he wasn't that much, like, he didn't need to be there because of the way it was trimmed down so much.
I know you're talking about.
It was like, if you're gonna just cut it down to that, where he's not that much of his involvement's very minimal. It made the movie drag in a way that it didn't need to. If, like, you're just gonna cut it out, and like have it be what it is, because it was a little too long in general. They definitely cut out some stuff from the miniseries and put some stuff back in from the book, which was nice. With the individual kids as adults going through their individual, like, coming to terms with their individual trauma and like reliving it. Like, some of that stuff was put back in. It definitely, though, it was a little draggy. There was some stuff with Richie Tozier, some character stuff that the seeds of it are definitely in the book. Like, when I read the book, I had that thought that was part of his trauma, except it was a different time in the book. It was like the 50s into the 80s. And so it, now it's the 80s into present day. I felt like if they're going to go ahead and keep that in there and like make it more apparent, it could have like they just should have went all the way with it instead of hinted at it. Like, it needed to be like manifested in a way that was relevant for the time that we're in now. And just, if you're going to change the time period and the circumstance, then you need to go ahead and live in that.
They could have just come out with it,
Right. They made it be then, like, it still felt like 1950s dancing around it, 1980s dancing around it, where instead of 80s and in the present day, like, it felt like, and then, it's in the United States in the 80s, and then like his trauma just wasn't manifested in the way that it would be, that was relevant for the time period they decided to set it in, is what I'm saying. And they should have just went all in on it, because the seeds of that were definitely in the book. It's just, it was a different time. And so it was more like between the lines, I guess. And it's like, if you want to make it be more apparent, then they should have just went all in. I don't want to give it away because that's like a huge spoiler, but
that's true.
I did find it super funny. Not as a comedy though, but I felt like it was funnier than scary, but I wasn't mad at that at all. True. Like, it just
bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just and it wasn't unintentionally funny. It was intentional. It was just funnier than scary intentionally. And I'm not mad at that. Like, sometimes you have to laugh at things that scare you because that's the way to release kinds of tension. And sometimes, trauma, like real trauma, emotional trauma is, you have to laugh at it to keep from crying or screaming, and it definitely had a lot of moments of levity that I didn't expect and was kind of pleasantly surprised by, I guess, because it's hard to make a scary movie scary when you're,
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it a lot. I had a lot.
I thought his funny moments were pretty good. I mean, I guess I probably maybe shouldn't have read the reviews, but I didn't go in there thinking it was going to be comedy-like. But afterwards, I just didn't understand when some of the reviews was like, this was more comedy than horror film. I'm like, no.
Horror films can be both. That's part of it. It's like, you can't be relentlessly scared for 2 hours and some change without being able to, like, you bring the laughter to break the tension, and then you ramp it back up again. And so the movie, it had like those rises and falls that I'm not mad at that at all. I would definitely say this is like a super good matinee movie. This is going to be excellent when it comes out on Redbox. I would love to get, get both of them and watch the whole thing, like just make a day of it. Right. There are definitely, some real genuine, like, creepy, unsettling things. Pennywise is supposed to be, okay, so this is a side note, aside from everything, like, now we're done with the movie. Pennywise is supposed to be, he's a being from another dimension outside of our dimension, where these, like, terrestrial, if you seen The Mist, he's that. Like, there are thin places in our reality that can lead to other dimensions, and then, like, outside there are these, like, H.P. Lovecraftian type horror beings that live and sort of make up the backbone inner workings of our reality. And he broke through, like, a thin place in our reality and has been on our plane of existence long before there were ever people here. And as people evolved, he just started feeding on them. And and his mortal enemy is actually a giant turtle named Maturin, who is like, there's myths of like a turtle with the world on its back. I don't know if you've seen that. Like that's like one of those beings, and he's an agent of creation, and he spit out our universe. And Pennywise is the type of creature that's an agent of destruction, and they're like mortal enemies. But yeah, that whole thing is not in any of the movies because it's a whole lot to try to explain and discuss and digest and like make apparent in a 2-hour movie, even a 4-hour movie. Like there's no way that can like all be in there. There's like some little tiny like Bill, they have like Legos that's made into a turtle, and like little things where they like kind of hint at it, but it's really one of those things that's impossible to unless you make a movie about Pennywise. Yeah, it's in the book. It's in a lot of other books too. Like Stephen King is one of those writers that writes about everything is in every book. There's like links to all of his books and other books. Like especially if you read the Dark Tower series, there's actually another being in the Dark Tower series that's like akin to Pennywise, and he like does the kind of same thing where he's like dancing a jig and making people laugh, and then they're like laughing and laughing and laughing so much, almost like the Joker's laughing gas, to where they're dying, and he's like feeding on this energy. But he's like that same type of a creature, this like spidery monster creature thing. And Pennywise, and the creature is actually I think it's female. It's got eggs, and like that whole thing is not in there, and it's a whole lot of mythology and backstory to just that. Like there could be a movie about just that, and I think they're talking about making an It Chapter 3 that is just about Pennywise's origin story.
I'd see that.
And it's very involved. Like there's enough through the mythology of Stephen King's other books about these types of characters and where they come from that they could make a coherent movie out of that, and I would watch the hell out of that. So
I'd watch it for sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of like neither here nor there about the movie. It doesn't matter. But the movie was good. It's definitely good enough to watch in the theater. I would say it's for sure matinee worthy. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say opening night 3D, any of that nonsense, but yeah, like full ticket price, I'd watch it. I wasn't mad that I watched it and I paid full price for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'd go with that. Yeah, definitely, that afternoon.
Yeah, like I've watched movies that I paid full price for and I was mad about it. And
That's true.
This isn't one of those.
This is not one of them,
right?
For sure. So
Don, you want to tell them where they can find us?
Oh, yeah. Listen, you can find not only more of our takes, but more of our podcast episodes in one awesome spot, TCADNetwork.com. Head on over there. We've got links to all of our stuff that we've got, be it on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher. It's all right there, TCADNetwork.com. But while you're here on YouTube, please do not hesitate to subscribe. Hit the bell to get more takes or notifications, actually, of when we do some more takes. And just to update our tens of listeners, because I know they're out there, because I hear it all the time. They're like, hey, what's the deal? What kind of took you so long to do something like this? Listen, my internet right now and I are having a fight.
Yes, it's bad business.
And I'm gonna put them on blast. Cox Communications. I've gone through 3 modems now these past 2 weeks. Right now, I am just so surprised my internet has worked for this long, and my fingers and toes are crossed just to do this. I'm still having a fight. I have another technician coming out in 2 days to fix it because it keeps dropping repeatedly throughout the day. So that's why. Because it just got to a point where we couldn't do anything of any length. And right now, even doing this is on borrowed time because it could drop any second. So just have no fear. Once I can fix that, we can go to a steady, just timetable.
But we got a lot of stuff coming up. We got Rambo coming up. Don. I still want to see Ad Astra and talk about that.
Thank you.
There's
so much. But right now, me and the internet are just not on speaking terms.
Y'all better get it together.
And then another thing I have to let our tens of listeners know, because they asked me, they're like, hey, do you actually sleep on a bunk bed? It's like, no. This is not my room. This is in the kids' room, because being in a house with a wife who wants the room to watch TV, and now a dog who's outside. I don't know if you can hear the dog, hopefully not, who makes a ton of noise. This is the quietest room in my house.
You should have just said yes.
I could have. Look, if they want to believe that I sleep on a bunk bed, by all means, knock yourself out. But this is really the quietest room in my house presently. So here I am. I'm sure pretty soon I'm going to end up in the garage at some point. But I just go where I can. So yes, to answer my tens of listeners' questions, I do have bunk beds, but this is not my room. Just so you know.
That's fair.
Yes, this adulting stuff is awesome.
Well, I guess that's it, man. Not to leave you on a bummer. Go see it Chapter 2 while it's still in the theater. If you've seen it Chapter 1, I think hopefully it's in the Redbox if you haven't seen it, and then you can go and then watch it Chapter 2 and not be lost.
Yes,
but the action performances, spot on. Like, they're great. We didn't even talk about that. They were great. Don't listen to the critics. They were wanting more from it than it is, and that's not fair.
That's true. You'll enjoy it. You'll have fun.
It's a good time.
Just go. Just go.
Right.
Just go. See you.
See ya.